about the old Big Four tournament. The coaches hated it,
right?
But the fans absolutely loved it. We have old REL footage where people are smoking cigarettes in the Greensboro Coliseum.
Oh, I remember those days.
You remember those days?
Yeah, boy.
And, and people are having a good time. I look at that and think to myself, that is how you get interest back in the ACC.
I'm gonna tie three things together here about revenue generation, and one is a Richard Deitch podcast with Burke Magnus, where Burke Magnus specifically talks about revenue generation for college networks and college sports.
Yeah.
Being the live event, the captivated live event. Like ESPN released some numbers this morning that Duke Carolina is still like the number 2 basketball game behind DePaul Creighton, which, by the way, followed an NFL wild card or playoff game.
Right.
So I got
that one doesn't count. That one doesn't count.
But to me, part of the and people look at me like you're lost your mind. They'll never go for it. They will if it means dollars. And the bottom line is I don't see a problem with bringing the Big Four tournament back. Except I want the Big Four tournament with the Dixie Classic model. And so, look, we're living in this world of speculation, right? I mean, this week I'm hearing that John Skipper tells David, what is it, Sampson?
David Sampson on the Le Batard
I
show.
sent that link to you this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, Skipper's talking about the ability for live events and the Pac-12 and the ACC and all that. Okay, well, I got an idea. Let's take 4 Pac-12 teams and 4 ACC teams and play a doubleheader over 2 days somewhere.
Sure.
Guess what? Put a corporate sponsor on it. That's revenue generation. Create floor seats. You mean, when are you going to do it? I don't know. Second week in January?
Right.
I mean, we can do anything to manipulate the schedule. Nobody says, hey, look, we back college basketball up earlier in November every year, right? And we need to stop that because it gets lost in the heyday of football on the collegiate and professional level all the way now through second week in February. So we need to find ways, if you're going to continue to push basketball and the product line of basketball, to create compelling live events. I don't see any reason why you can't sit around a table and get people to understand that, hey, once every 4 years, you're going to be involved in an MTE with 8 teams, and it's going to be a revenue generation. We're going to have floor seats and whatever, banquet service and luxury boxes and all that. And you could do it around the country to feature the best 4 teams in your league and the best 4 teams in the Pac-12 or the SEC or whatever.
They need to get creative. That's what the bottom line is.
That's the bottom line.
I'm just looking up some great names from the from that ACC Big East Challenge.
So now you believe me?
No, when you were saying it happened at the Meadowlands, I'm like, okay, now wait a second. I went to a lot of basketball games at the Meadowlands.
I would have remembered Hartford.
Probably Hartford. So, but what I'm getting at is in the creative sense. Why not split up your own? We've talked about this. Maybe you don't play the ACC tournament. Maybe you have one at the end of the year. Maybe there's one in the middle. The NBA is talking about playing a tournament in the middle of their schedule. Maybe look at minor league baseball around you. Maybe you have a first half. Maybe the top 4 teams from the first half. Then the top 4 teams, it almost acts like a relegation, right?
You can split the old Big East teams and the ACC teams and find a mid-season reason to go back to Madison Square Garden with the Big East teams.
And then come here, bring the A teams, and say that's your automatic bid.
Yeah.
There's many different ways to do it.
No question.
But it requires you thinking a little bit differently. We had Jim Phillips here yesterday. We were talking to him about this. I believe the success of the SEC Big 12 challenge and the timing of
January,
it is because we just had Jerry Palm on, and I've said this to Joe before. All that matters is when you win, okay? You could sit here, and we're all guilty of trying to figure out the net. We're all guilty of saying, this doesn't make any sense. Why did Utah State move up 28 points after winning by 2 against the crappy UNLV team, right? But the truth of the matter is the SEC and Big 12 played in the middle of their conference schedule. Oklahoma beat the brakes off of Alabama.
Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden, guess what, Wes? Everyone in the Big 12 who beats the last place team in the Big 12 gets all kinds of credit for beating Oklahoma.
Right.
Same thing, Carolina. You can't beat Iowa State. We're talking to Bubba Cunningham yesterday. He's sitting in a room this week trying to defend his team. Well, guess what? Would have helped your damn team in the league. Beat Iowa State, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
They're not that good.
Correct.
You're better than Iowa State.
Yep.
I ain't saying you got to beat Alabama in 4 overtimes, but you should beat Iowa State for – come on, man.
But for 2 overtimes, you were better than Alabama too, by the way. But you're right. And see, that's the issue. We get locked up in the MTEs in November that are meaningless.
That was, all well-intentioned. We're going to play games in Portland. It's Nike's home. Phil Knight loves us. He's bankrolled us all these years. Cool. But I watch those games. There's nobody there.
Nobody there.
Okay?
Not a soul.
So, you talk about trying to – and I get it. TV inventory is really important. I understand that. But again, to your point, it's buried in the beginning of the season. You do something like this after or maybe even the week of the Super Bowl break.
Yep.
You know, we saw this even the day of the Super Bowl back in NC State and Maryland, the success that they had playing that game.